It's 1914 and Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife Sophie have been shot, assassinated in the streets of Sarajevo, the nation's capital. His death reverberated throughout Western Europe, initiating a world war. In 5 years, millions of British, French, German, Austro-Hungarian, Serbian, Turkish, Russian, American, and many more will be slaughtered on the field of battle. This war was unlike any other. Its effects were felt by every man, woman, and child throughout the world, including a young boy by the name of Andrei Ryanovsky. Born near the Russian city of Minsk, he witnessed firsthand the Russian army buckle under the successful German advance. Soon, he experienced the complete collapse of the Tsar when Vladimir Lenin plunged the nation into revolution. Tsar Nicholas II abdicated the throne, and the Bolsheviks claimed dominion for the newly formed Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The Bolsheviks, now in charge, suppressed any opposition to their reign. They shuttered any publication or businesses that dared challenge their authority, and arrested anyone brave enough to vocalize their dissent. In 1919, this censorship came for the Ryanovsky family. First, they came for their business, shutting it down, then kept close watch on the activities and associates of Ryanovsky's father. Fear crept into their every waking moment. Who knew when the Bolsheviks would come for their lives? Afraid, Ryanovsky's father purchased train tickets out of the country. But as they stood on the station platform, waiting for the train to arrive, his aunt and uncle approached them. Disheveled, unnerved, they desperately begged for money, but his father refused, stating he only had enough to support himself and the boy. Before the scene could grow any worse, the Bolshevik Red Guard appeared behind them. They dismissed the Ryanovskys, but detained the aunt and uncle. Through a window of the train, young Andrei watched as a confrontation broke out on the platform, ending with a crack of pistols, and his aunt and uncle lying face down in a lifeless heap on the ground. Right then, the train lurched forward with a boy who would never be the same again. They fled to Constantinople and eventually reached the United States. Here, Ryanovsky embraced the rugged individualism of the American spirit, where social Darwinism dictated that those endowed with natural genius and talent deserved their financial rewards, like Andrew Carnegie and Thomas Edison, and nothing should stand in their way. The very thought of oversight and regulations were considered a sin, and those unable to pull themselves up by their bootstraps deserved their punishment, a moral failing unworthy of any charity. In the thrall of it, Andrei Ryanovsky loved his new land he called home, this land that greatly influenced the nascent ideology forming in his head.
What is the greatest lie ever created? What is the most vicious obscenity ever perpetrated on mankind? Slavery, the Holocaust, dictatorship. No, it's the tool with which all that wickedness is built. Altruism. Whenever anyone wants others to do their work, they call upon their altruism. Never mind your own needs, they say. Think of the needs of whoever. Of the state, of the poor, of the army, of the king, of God. The list goes on and on. How many catastrophes were launched with the words, think of yourself? It's the king and country crowd who light the torch of destruction. It is this great inversion, this ancient lie, which has chained humanity to an endless cycle of guilt and failure.
Andrei Ryanovsky found fortune in his new homeland almost immediately. When he struck oil on his property, he smartly invested heavily in its development, and soon amassed an empire in the oil and railroad industries, surpassing the likes of Rockefeller and Vanderbilt, respectively. Grateful to his adopted country for this opportunity, he changed his name to Andrew Ryan, so as to sound more American, and established Ryan Industries. As his wealth and power grew, he refined his personal ideology further, categorizing two types of people in the world. One was man, and the other was a parasite.
What is the difference between a man and a parasite? A man builds, a parasite asks, where's my share? A man creates, a parasite says, what will the neighbors think? A man invents, a parasite says, watch out, or you might tread on the toes of God. The parasite expects the doctor to heal them for free, the farmer to feed them out of charity. How little they differ from the pervert who prowls the streets looking for a victim he can ravish for his grotesque amusement.
To Ryan, it was these parasites that were holding back social, economic, and cultural development. They were preventing the talented and hardworking from pulling what he came to call the Great Chain.
I believe in no God, no invisible man in the sky. But there is something more powerful than each of us, a combination of our efforts, a great chain of industry that unites us. But it is only when we struggle in our own interest that the chain pulls society in the right direction. The chain is too powerful and too mysterious for any government to guide. Any man who tells you different either has his hand in your pocket or a pistol to your neck.
Fortunately, Ryan lived in an era of Republican control who spurred on economic growth by entwining business interests with government cooperation. They would oversee the weakening of the labor unions, the dismantling of the closed-shop system, and a booming stock market. But then in 1929, the market crashed, and the world descended into the Great Depression. Thousands saw their life savings evaporate, their homes seized, and their jobs eliminated. Destitute, those hit hardest begged for help, and one man was willing to provide them that relief.
The present leadership in Washington stands convicted, not because it did not have the means to plan, but fundamentally because it did not have the will to do.
Franklin D. Roosevelt. In 1932, he sailed into the White House and implemented the New Deal, much to Andrew Ryan's chagrin. Roosevelt's welfare policies were completely antithetical to Ryan's philosophy.
My journey to Rapture was my second exodus. In 1919, I fled a country that had been traded in despotism for insanity. Marxist revolution simply traded one lie for another. Instead of one man, the Tsar, owning the work of all the people own the work of all of the people. So, I came to America, where a man could own his own work, where a man could benefit from the brilliance of his own mind, the strength of his own muscles, the might of his own will. I had thought I had left the parasites of Moscow behind me. I had thought I had left the Marxist altruists to their collective farms and their 5-year plans. As the German fools threw themselves on Hitler's sword for the good of the Reich, the Americans drank deeper and deeper of the Bolshevik poison, spoon-fed to them by Roosevelt and his New Dealers.
FDR's presidency radically changed the relationship between the people and the government. Its involvement in banks and businesses increased with the passage of the Glass-Steagall Act and establishment of the National Recovery Administration. Americans were hired by a variety of federal programs, including the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Public Works Administration. Federal funds were dispersed for regional projects such as the Tennessee Valley Authority and the Central Valley Project. The Wagner Act strengthened unions, and the Social Security Act provided a safety net for those reaching their golden years. Though FDR sought to pull the United States out of the Great Depression, Ryan believed his New Deal had only turned America into a paradise for the parasites. He resisted every measure of the administration's altruism.
I once bought a forest. The parasites claimed that the land belonged to God and demanded that I establish a public park there. Why? So the rebel could stand slack-jawed under the canopy and pretend that it was paradise earned. When Congress moved to nationalize my forest, I burnt it to the ground.
Recognizing that this world was no longer meant for him, a seed of an idea grew in his mind and began to take form.
And so, I asked myself, in what country was there a place for men like me? Men who refused to say yes to the parasites and the doubters. Men who believed that work was sacred and property rights inviolate. And then, one day, the happy answer came to me, my friends. There was no country for people like me. And that was the moment I decided to build one.
Years passed and another war consumed the world before that idea of Andrew Ryan sprouted and blossomed into a tangible reality, though events outside of his control had forced his hand. In August of 1945, Ryan's personal secretary, known only as Sullivan, handed him his daily report. It recounted the bombing of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Stunned, Ryan immediately recognized the harbinger of things to come, a desolate world shrouded in a nuclear cloud. His dream now took on a new urgency. Thus, on August 21st, he began assembling like-minded people to join this project to build a utopia, placing it where none believed possible, on the ocean's floor.
Build a city at the bottom of the sea. Insanity. But where else could we be free from the clutching hand of the parasites? Where else could we build an economy that they would not try to control, a society that they would not try to destroy? It was not impossible to build Rapture at the bottom of the sea. It was impossible to build it anywhere else.
Sullivan joined first as security. His task was to ensure nobody caught wise to this operation. Next, he contracted Wales & Wales, an architectural firm founded by brothers Daniel and Simon Wales. They had made a name for themselves in Ireland, designing grand cathedrals. So who better than them to design Ryan's Utopia?
Now in the motherland, Simon and I designed cathedrals together. But I was the black old sheep back there, never believing a word of the Jesus bollocks myself. Then Andrew Ryan says he wants Wales & Wales for Rapture, a cathedral with no God, befitting the ascent of man.
Days later, Bill McDonough would join the project by happenstance.
I met Ryan the day me and the lads were installing the bathroom plumbing up in his Posh Park Avenue digs. Wait, says he, what's with all the brass fittings? General contractor had me down for the tip. Well, I says, I suppose it's the contractor then who'll be bailing out your loo once a fortnight, is it? If it's price you're worried about, I'll be picking up the brass, so not to worry, Squire. And why would you be doing that, says he? Well, Mr. Ryan, profit or not, no man bails water out of privies built by Bill McDonough. Next day I finds out I'm Ryan's new general contractor.
Next came financing the whole operation. This Ryan had to do in secret. First, he established several shell companies, then used them to funnel money through to buy the necessary materials. One such shell company that came to light was Warden Yarn, an anagram of his name. It conducted business with Orrin Lutwig's Scarlet Sovereign Import and Export in order to acquire large amounts of aluminum. For months, the ruse worked as Ryan secretly built his city.
Of course, the buildings are being fabricated above the waves. But we will lower them on a lunette ring, submerged into the structure's steel frames. So much steel, you wonder. How will we keep so large a purchase from the government? Water is buoyant. We shall not frame Rapture in steel, but in aluminium. The government jackals may suspect me of building an air force, but never a city.
Now that all the pieces were in place, Ryan boarded his private steamliner, the Olympian, and set sail in search of the perfect spot for his utopia under the sea.
Andrew Ryan wakes one night while cruising the Atlantic in his steamliner, the Olympian. His sleep interrupted with a singular purpose. Here, he shouts to his crewmen as he wipes sleep from his eyes. Full stop. We begin building here. Refitted for heavy construction, the Olympian returns with a new cargo, a state-of-the-art submersible platform, nicknamed the Sinker, ferries supplies and workers to the sea floor, fathoms below. After initial supplies have been brought to the seafloor, the platform is permanently moored in the sediment. Massive iron girders are sunk hundreds of feet into the rock and silt. Below the platform, engineers work to overcome obstacles such as diamond-hard rock, obstinate sea life, and unexpected cavalry. After the platform is secured, work progresses at an astounding rate. Designed to be the foundation of Rapture, workers toil around the clock to create the metropolis you see today.
Located between Iceland and Greenland, Ryan's Utopia took form over the next 6 years as the main districts and arteries opened for operation. Arcadia produced the oxygen necessary to breathe thousands of leagues under the sea. Fort Frolic offered the arts and entertainment to a bustling populace, and Rapture Central Computing kept the city running smoothly through advanced automation. Rapture Metro tied the whole city together, and Apollo Square housed the inhabitants in affordable living. Then there were the hundreds of products and stores sprinkled throughout the whole expanse of the city, including Lamb's Garden, Jet Postal, Lots & Sons, Fontaine Fisheries, Hop-Up, Circus of Values, and so much more. Andrew Ryan named his utopia Rapture, and it was to be a Garden of Eden for those who worship the ingenuity and talents of the individual. When the first inhabitants arrived in 1946, they had to pass through a lighthouse, where a giant statue of Andrew Ryan welcomed the incoming migrants with a banner held high for all to see. Emblazoned on it were the words of Rapture's defining philosophical virtue: no gods or kings, only men. Then, boarding the bathysphere, they would hear the man himself speak as they set a course for the city.
I am Andrew Ryan, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture. A city where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small. And with the sweat of your brow, Rapture can become your city as well.
Andrew Ryan had done it. He had built the impossible and filled it with the greatest minds the world had ever produced. Sander Cohen, Gil Alexander, Yi Su Chong, J.S. Steinman, Augustus Sinclair, Charles Milton Porter, Bridget Tenenbaum, and many more. He hoped they would grab hold of the great chain and pull Rapture to glory.
Best drink I ever had was a tin cup of rot gut just after throwing the last seam up on Hephaestus. I remember thinking, we just built paradise. Hard. Ain't never gonna top this.
By 1951, the world above now served no purpose for the men like Andrew Ryan. And that year, he officially cut all contact between Rapture and the surface world. Soon, the city would enter its golden era.